Hey, shalom. Welcome back. Here we are, continuing with our study in Qoheleth. That's the book of Ecclesiastes. Today we'll be in chapter 3, so that's exciting stuff. Just starting in chapter 3, yay, there we are. Chapter 3, right there. And let's just say a real quick prayer. Avinu Malkeinu, ken yehi ratzon ki lekachnu, yihyeh tov be'ernecha. Ta'azerna Abba et kol talmidai, v'gam oti lirot et panecha. All right, let's get started. I have been investigating another app for drawing, but for now, I'm going to use this one because at least I know how to use it, and people seem to like it yesterday. So let's just scan the first part of the verse. It says, laakor zman. By the way, you don't have to watch if you don't want to. I'm trying to combine both learning styles, the auditory learning and the visual learning. So if you want to drive or something, you don't have to watch the screen, right? You can try to just listen. Or even if you watch through one time visually and then you want to go through it again and try the auditory learning, this is good to approach with multiple directions from your mind. It's good. If you're having trouble memorizing vocabulary, it just seems like it's not sticking, you might want to try a kind of kinesthetic or kinetic learning. What you can do is you can do some exercise, and just before you exercise, go through the list of vocabulary words you want to learn, and then when you're done, go through them again. Or sometimes people, if you're on a cross train or a treadmill or something like that, you can put it in front of you and memorize while you're doing it. I used to do that, and I found that to be very helpful for memorizing verses in Hebrew. All right, so let's get to it. Laakor zman. Laakor zman. So we have the inseparable preposition, lamed. Two or four. We're going to go with four here. Four. Kol. Now, kol, kaf, lamed, if you're just listening, not to be confused with kol, that's spelled with a kuf or kof. That one would mean voice or sound. This one means everything or everyone or all, okay? So four, it could be everyone here. It could have that meaning of everyone. But we're going to go with everything. So, because that's kind of traditional. Literally, it's for the all, right? So let me mark the the. If you didn't hear the in there, le is for, and then is the the. And the dagesh in the kaf. That's actually a strong dagesh. So la kol. Le is for, ak is the, and kol is all. So for the all. Now we probably have to insert, we don't really have it in here, but in English, to make it make sense, we have to insert an is. It depends on what the definition of is. Sorry, Clinton will live in infamy. Laakor. Funny, he wrote me a letter of recommendation for university. It was our governor back then. Isn't that funny? So, all right, let's continue on. Laakor, for everything, is a zman. Zman. What does zman mean? Zaman. This has the meaning of time, but it's, by the way, the period we're in here is late biblical Hebrew, right? So that's why we start to see things like shef or asher and those kinds of things. So this was written in the late biblical Hebrew period, so quite far from the Torah and such, in case you find sometimes the way things are written or handled to be a bit strange. Zaman implies like a planned time, planned time, like a specific time. I'll put the definition of halot up here. Halot says that zman is an appointed time. Don't confuse it with Torah Hebrew Moed. Appointed time or an hour. Now this is not the use of hour like we would use it. This is using it more like the hour is at hand. Something like this. We understand in the current hour of need, etc. So, laakor, for everything, or for everyone, but for everything is the way it's traditionally viewed, is a zman, zayin mem nun, a zman, an appointed time or an hour. Ve'ait, that's vav, ayin, tav. So the vav, of course, is and. And right, ayin tav, a season. Or you could say a point in time. Not sure how useful that is. Think of it this way. There's an appointed time and a point in time. Zaman ve'ait. Lakol zaman ve'ait. For everything, there is an appointed time or an hour and a season or a point in time. Lakol zeman ve'ait. Or in ancient times, aif. It would have said wa'aif. Many think it would have been wa'aif. Wa'aif. Oftentimes the Yemeni Jews, we have Jews from all around the world, right? If you're not familiar, from all over the place. And those with the Yemeni nusach, that's the Jews from Yemen who immigrated to Israel from Yemen on, I think that was Operation Kanfei Nesher, Eagle's Wings. They were brought out secretly in the middle of the night on C-130s, big airplanes that landed in the desert and evacuated them so the hostile Islamic regime would not stop the Jews from escaping. Anyway, the Yemeni Jews in their liturgy, oftentimes they will pronounce a vocal schwa as a like a slight So, and many scholars believe that the Yemenite Jewish pronunciation is the closest to one of the ancient pronunciations. We had different pronunciations in ancient times, of course, depending on which tribe and which locale. So perhaps an ancient way to pronounce it would have been wa'if, wa'if, lakol zaman, or lakol zaman wa'if. Okay. Continuing on. Lechol cheifetz. Lechol cheifetz. And you might be wondering, why is that chol and not chal? Well, that's because this comments here is in a closed, unaccented syllable. What that means is that when we have a word in a construct chain, which this is, you can usually tell if there's a makef, that's a dead giveaway that it's in construct. That's there's a hyphen. It's lechol cheifetz. So we have a construct chain here. Sorry for those of you listening, I'm marking it. Okay. And when you have a construct chain, in ancient times, only the last word typically received an accent. Even if you see accent marks on the other words and such, only the last one was pronounced. So they were read as if, they were read together kind of rapidly, as if it was a compound word. So even though now we are saying le chol cheifetz, in those times it would have been the chol cheifetz, le chol cheifetz, le chol cheifetz, see? So that means that the syllable chol, it ends in a lamut, so it's a closed syllable. Closed syllable is a syllable which ends in a consonantal sound, right? So not a vowel. And it's unaccented. And the rule on comets is if it's in a closed syllable and the syllable is unaccented, then we read it as if it's an O. It's an O. See? That's what's happening. And here is our accent. That's our accent marker. So definitely the syllable chol is unaccented. Okay? And you'll see that sometimes this word, it will be spelled with a O. Well, there'll be a cholam up here. So it's always an O. It's just how you spell it. Okay? So that is the rule. If you care about that, fine. If you don't care, it's okay. When you have a comets in a closed syllable and it's unaccented, then it's an O sound. Let's roll for this guy. Okay? Cheifetz. Cheifetz. This word is a joy or delight. Cheifetz. Joy. A delight. In some contexts, it means a precious stone, right? So context is really king. Joy or delight. It can also mean like business, with the idea that a business that you want to be successful, like not necessarily a business like a geschäft, sorry, not like, but like something that you're doing, right? With a goal in mind. Cheifetz. There's a famous scholar, the Chofetz Chaim. Chafetz, the verbal root means like to desire, to want something. So that's a term from Tehillim, the one who desires life, a Chofetz Chaim. With the implication of Chaim, Chaim is often a loaded word in Hebrew. If you listen to it, Chaim. Chaim. By the way, the word cheifetz, it's chet, for those of you who are listening only. It's a chet. Chet, pe, tzadi. Cheifetz. So, Chaim, whenever you hear a word that ends in ayim, that's in the dual. That means you have two of those things. So, Chaim, the word only exists in this kind of plural dual format, right? We don't say like just chai by itself. I think Arabic has chay or something like that, a singular form. Like we have mayim. I know Egyptian Arabic, they have may. So it implies there's two of it. And I haven't read this anywhere. Maybe it's a little too obvious, but I would give credit had I read it somewhere. To me, I think it's called Chaim in Hebrew because there are two of them. There's this Chaim in this world, in this life, and then there's the Chaim in Olam Haba, the world to come, right? The next life. So it exists in the dual to reinforce, this is just my understanding, my belief, to reinforce the concept of an afterlife. And also to prevent people from slipping into thinking, if we'd called it Instead of chayim, if we called it chay, how would you do it? Let's see. Chayim, instead of chayim, if we'd call it like chayim, then it might imply multiple lives, i.e. reincarnation and such, which for humans I don't think is the case. All right, let's continue. Laakor zman, for every appointed time, v'ait, and season, lechol cheifetz, the lamut, I didn't color the lamut in there. We don't have to be like legalistic about it, but let's go ahead, why not? For chol, for every cheifetz, joy or delight. Continuing on. Tachat shamayim. There's another dual word. The dual means there's two of the thing. I'm not sure if I explained that or not. Tachat shamayim. Tachat is under, and I've shared a mnemonic for this. If you read it with Ashkenazi pronunciation, the German Jewish pronunciation, a tav without a dot in it is an S sound. That's an S, right? When you have a tav in ancient Hebrew, it's thought to have been a th. That's why we get Sabbath in English, because Shabbat was actually Shabbath, and then it came into Aramaic as Sabbath, and then into English as Sabbath. So tachaf, well, it sounds like a speech impediment, in Ashkenazi pronunciation would be tachas. And this comes into Yiddish as tuchas. Your tuchas is what's underneath you, right? So that's a way you can remember. Tachat is underneath, or under. Tachat, under, sometimes it can mean instead of, like in place of tachat shamayim. Hash is the the hay and the dagash, that gives us the all of that, the hay and the and the sh, the first sheen, hash. Remember from ancient Hebrew, hal shamayim became hash shamayim, the heavens. Tachat or tachas shamayim, under the heavens. Lakol zaman v'ait lechol cheifetz tachat shamayim. For everything there is a zaman, an appointed time, an hour, v'ait, and a specific time or a season. Lechol cheifetz. For chol, everything or every cheifetz, joy or delight, perhaps desire. Tachat shamayim, under the sun. Any comments or questions? How you guys doing? I'm going to take a drink for a moment. Wow, I was thirstier than I thought. Hope you're enjoying our progression as we try to improve, trying to have continual improvement in our teaching methods. I'm so grateful to all of our subscribers. If you're new to the channel, please click the like button and subscribe, ring the bell. We have at least 5 videos a week, oftentimes more. You can totally get all of your Hebrew learning here if you need to. No problem using other resources, that's even great. Good to spread it out. But if you have limited time, you can go far with us here. That is our vision, for you to really get the Hebrew language, to get the holy tongue, Lashon HaKodesh. All right. Then we have something interesting here. After laakor zman v'ait lechol cheifetz tachat shamayim, we have a samech. Look at this, samech. We have a samech here. And this is what we call a satum. It's just a traditional marker that the Masoretes have in the text that shows that this is the end of a section. So in ancient times, chapter 3, verse 1 was actually the end of the previous section. That's what that satum is telling us. Perhaps. Or at least they wanted us to have a decent pause to think about this for a moment. I like to think of it sometimes like the Selah that you see in Tehillim. All right, let's continue. I hope the sound is coming through good. Please let me know. And if you're watching this after the fact and you can't participate in the live chat with us, then please leave a comment down below if you have a question or an idea, or you like something about the new way that Don't worry, the other ways are not gone forever. This is just experimenting with something new, seeing how it works for everyone. All right, chapter 3, verse 2, in the original Hebrew of Qoheleth, that's Ecclesiastes. So Qoheleth, he continues on. Verse 2, I will just read the verse and then we can pick it apart. Ait laledet, ve'ait lamut, ait lataat, ve'ait laakor natua. All right. Getting into some famous stuff here. Ait, so that's tav, that's a season or a specific time. And ait laledet. This might be a little bit more difficult to recognize what's going on with this one here. So the lamed, the initial lamed, we recognize. This is the inseparable preposition lamed. I might have chosen the wrong kind of brush. I'm not sure what's going on there. So 2 or 4, usually what it means. So a season, a specific time. And ait laledet. So the law is 4 or 2. And laledet, this is the infinitive form from the verb yalad. Yalad. Who can think of another word that has yod, lamed, dalet in it? So the verb is yod, lamed, dalet. So we have our lamed. We have our dalet. Right, that's this one and this one, but we're missing the yod. Right? This guy has gone rogue. He's not here. This kind of verb that starts with a yod, we oftentimes call a pay yod verb. Pay yod verb. Why do we call it pay yod? Well, this is the traditional Jewish, the rabbinical way of referring to it. It's because the pattern which is used for identifying verbs, like things that express doing something, is expressed by the letter pay. That's the first position, is a pay. And the second position is ayin. And then the third position is is lamed. So, pa'al. So when the first letter in the verb starts with a yod, that is in the pay position. There's a yod in the pay position. See, that's what's going on. So we call it a pay yod verb. Pay yod. Okay? Now, many Christian grammars will say first position yod. That's fine. They'll use like the Roman numeral 1. They'll call it an I yod verb or an I yod. Sometimes I'm a dash there. Totally fine. Roman numeral 1 is what's going on there. So with these kinds of verbs, this is the form they take in the construct. Yalad becomes ledet. So laledet is to birth. So verse 2, chapter 3, verse 2 of Qoheleth says, pardon me, ancient pronunciation there, laledet, a time to birth, like a time to give birth, or a time for birthing. Ve'ait, and ait, a time or a season. Lamut. Here's the lamut, inseparable preposition again. Lamed, inseparable preposition 2 or 4. Okay. Mut. Remember we talked the other day about met? Get met, it pays. Right? The life insurance in the States. So the verb mawaf in ancient times, mem, wow, or vav, tav, was to die. In fact, in Canaanite lore, Maweth was the name of the god of the underworld who had an insatiable appetite. His mouth was always open, consuming everything, even the earth. Not the whole earth, but meaning the ground. Maweth. Which is interesting to keep in mind when you read Tehillim, because there are some psalms which deal with death, and it could either be the abstract form, or it almost seems like it's dealing with the Canaanite deity, like defeating the Canaanite deity. That the deity is the oyavim, the enemies of the psalmist. So lamut, to die, to die. There's an ait laledet, ve'ait lamut. Oops, sorry. A time, an appointed season, a specific time rather, or a season, laledet, to birth or for birthing, ve'ait, and a specific time or a season, lamut, to die or for dying. Ait, a time, lataat. So again, we have the inseparable preposition. To or for. Taat. What in the world is taat? Well, this is a pay noon verb. See, here's the pay, and it starts with a noon. So the verb is actually noon, tet, ayin, nata. Notice I've color-coded it with the paradigm used by the rabbis, Pei, Ayin, Lamed. So the Pei letter is a nun. So this is what we would call I'm going to erase this other part, okay? It's in my way. It's a Pei nun verb, because the nun would have been right here. Pei nun verb. And you might have noticed, hey, wait, something might look weird. Look, that nun, the final nun in the word Pei nun, it's a normal nun. It's not a nun sofit. Usually we put a nun sofit at the end of a verb when it's a nun, right? Well, not here, because when we do acronyms, when we write acronyms like this, like Pei nun, you don't use the final form of the letter. But that's not really a biblical Hebrew thing. That's more of a rabbinical Hebrew thing. Okay, so the tet, is in the ayin position, right? The first position is the pei, that's a nun, which is gone. They tend to fall away in pei nun verbs. That nun will either assimilate or disappear. And then the ayin position is the tet. And then the lamed position is the ayin. See that? So in this word, nata, we would say the nun is in the pei position. The tet is in the ayin position. And the ayin is in the lamed position. And of course, none of this will matter if you use Christian grammars or other grammars that have adopted the standard of just saying first position, second position, third position. But this is how we classify certain kinds of verbs and how they behave. You don't have to know this. It's okay. If this is stressing you out, knowing this grammar rule, that's fine. This is just for the grammar junkies, the grammar nuts who want to know it, okay? I try to put something in here for everybody. So if it helps you, file it away and use it. When you see the pattern, that's a pei nun verb. That's why the nun is gone. If it doesn't help you, just leave it be. We'll handle it word by word, verse by verse. It is my desire to eventually have the entire Hebrew Bible explained like this, word by word. Bli neder. I think that would be really cool for people, for anyone who wants to go through, you'll be able to go through and to really understand what's happening without having to know all the grammar right offhand. And if you don't remember these grammatical terms, who cares? The only purpose of grammar really is recognizing patterns. That's what it is. You recognize the pattern. So if you see lataat, and you know that that's not the verb natua, which means to plant, like to plant something green, right? To plant, then that's fine. That's all you need. It might be easy for you just to remember that lataat is to plant and natua is he planted. That's totally fine. Totally fine. Okay? No problem with that. So in ait, lataat, a specific time or a season to plant or for planting. Okay, so far in verse 2 we have, repeating this especially for those auditory learners, those who are just listening. You don't see all our flashy colors and stuff right now. Ait, laledet, and ait, a time or a season, laledet, for birthing or to birth. The ait, and a season, lamut, to die. Ait, lataat, a time or a season to plant. And now we continue on, new material. The ait, an ait, a time or a season. Whoops, it got covered. Laakor, natua. Inseparable preposition. To. And then the verb, la'akar, ayin, kof or kuf, resh, la'akar, is to tear up by the roots. To tear up by the roots. Ayin, kof or kuf, resh. The vav is just part of the infinitive form here. They're writing it the full way. So, la'akor is to tear up by the roots. Natua, nun, tet, shorik, ayin. This is a passive participle of that word, nata. So nata is to plant. Natua is what has been planted. And you'll note, in this case, it's not really relevant, but because there's an ayin at the end, but we have what's called a furtive patach at the end. So good printers, they'll put the patach a little bit to the right of that last letter. This happens when the last letter is a guttural, right? When it's an aleph, and ayin, a hey, or a chet. It's more noticeable in a word like shaluach. Let me write this. I'll write it underneath so that you can see how it matches. Shaluach. See how the patach, or listen, the patach comes before the last letter. We say shaluach, not shalucha, right? So shaluach is one who has been sent, or has been sent. So that furtive patach, the gutturals, they like it when they're at the end to pronounce the patach first, the ah sound first. Here it's kind of hard. How would we do it anyway? Natu, ah. So natua, it almost is more natural anyway, but it's more noticeable with a word like shalach, to send, shaluach, one who has been sent, or a sent one, or shaliach when we lean on the Aramaic orthography, morphology. Okay, so laakor, laakor, for tearing up by the roots, natua, what has been planted. Like Hamas, time to tear them up by the roots. Tear them up by the roots. All right, now, I had a couple of errors where I accidentally stopped my recording a few times in here when I was trying to pause, just so you didn't have to see all the color selections and stuff. No promise that I'll always be pausing when I do that, by the way, okay? just trying, seeing if it's hard to do. It's kind of a pain that I end up with 3 recordings. Now I got to sew them together and stuff. So I'm not really sure how long I've gone. I'm thinking 2 verses is probably enough. There's a lot of notes on here, right? If you guys see, there's a lot of notes going on. So I'm thinking I'm going to stop it here, but instead, let's go through twice more with the reading, especially for those of you doing the auditory learning style right now. I will read through it again, and I will give you the time to try to translate before I do. All right? All right, here we go. Ecclesiastes chapter 3, verse 1. Lakol zman ve'ait. Lakol. For every zaman, hour, appointed time, or just say time, ve'ait, and season. So we probably need to say lakol zaman ve'ait. For everything there is a zaman ve'ait. Lechol cheifetz. Lechol cheifetz. Le for chol, every, cheifetz, joy or delight, desire, something you might want. tachat shamayim. Tachat, under or underneath, the shamayim, the sun. Verse 2. Laledet. A season or a time, specific time, laledet, to birth. Lamut. And an lamut, to die. Lataat, an to natua, to plant. That's lataat. And an laakor, to root up, to tear up by the roots. Natua, that which was planted, or what was something planted. Okay, now I will go through it at a more moderate speed. Actually, I'll go through it twice more. I'll go through slowly still, but I won't translate it all now, all right? You try to get it. Lakol zman. Ve'ait lechol cheifetz. Tachat shamayim. Laledet. Lamut. Lataat. Laakor. Natua. All right, now we'll go through at a moderate speed. If you're watching visually, I will leave it all on the screen now so it's easier for your eyes to trace. I hope it's not too small. Lakol zman. Ve'ait lechol cheifetz. Tachat shamayim. Laledet. Ve'ait lamut. Lataat. Laakor natua. Last time through, a bit faster, okay? This is Qoheleth, Ecclesiastes chapter 3, verse 1 and 2. Lakol zman. Ve'ait lechol cheifetz. Tachat shamayim. Laledet. Ve'ait lamut. Lataat. Laakor natua. Okay, I hope you guys enjoyed that. I will catch you this Saturday, where we have our 2-hour-long Torah lesson. We'll be going through probably all of the Hebrew. We usually do the whole Torah portion, not always, of the ancient triennial Torah portion. By the way, if you're looking for these, a lot of them I don't keep up there, but lately I've been leaving a lot of them up. The trick is when you look at the YouTube channel, make sure that you click live. For some reason, YouTube has these menu items, videos and live, and then other stuff like shorts, etc. So live, well, they're videos too, but those classes are live, always like live, like recorded while they're being made. The reason I sometimes go back and forth between live and not in the week is internet issues, failures and such. I'd rather be able to mitigate that beforehand for you guys, and then sometimes do some nice edits to make it a bit better for you. But we do have the premieres. So thank you to all of you who are here in the live chat with me while we went through this. If you're watching this later, then leave me a comment down below. And as always, a special thanks to our patrons, those of you who provide monthly support. I really appreciate it. It's you guys that make this stuff all possible. You and, of course, our congregation, Simchat Hashem, here in the Philippines. Please keep praying for our soldiers and have a great prep day. Shalom, shalom.